Hey, number ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking. Not too long ago, I made a video called Was Nazism right-wing or left-wing? An answer from history. Now, this was a very successful video, as you can see, almost 1 million views, and of course there is 1 quintillion comments under this video. The thumbnails are great, you've got to give me that. So I thought today I would like to check out some of these comments and see what you guys think. Alright, and without further ado, let's jump right into it. Yakov Smirnov said it best. In America, you can go to the White House and say, I don't like Reagan. Soviet Russia has free speech too. You can go to the Kremlin and say, I don't like Reagan. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Accurate. Take Shot Action says, my politics is slightly left of center. Tried telling someone very far left once that I always found Nazi ideology more similar to leftist ideology. They raised their voice and got extremely angry rather than hearing out what I had to say. Well, this does happen a lot, particularly with people who belong to the far ends of the political spectrum. But in general, I think there are, as we were discussing on this video, you will find common areas in totalitarianisms, regardless of what core dynamics, politics, ideologies, economic backing they have. Once you reach totalitarian regime status, then you will find a lot of common points. Pius Malta, freedom of speech is the first thing to go. Yeah, that's what I did say. And that's why I'm so terrified and appalled by the current situation here in the UK. Yeah, I have to say that as someone who strongly believes in freedom of speech and the importance of freedom of speech, some things that I've seen happen in the UK, I'm no expert, of course, of the political situation, nor do I usually approach modern political discourse. But the idea that what you say can put you behind bars is something that I think should only be relegated, personally, to a very small number of things, such as, for example, well, I think we can all agree that you can't go into an elementary school and start talking inappropriately to children. I think that that should be prevented, of course. That's not covered by freedom of speech, not even in the US. There are things that you cannot say, like inciting people to commit violence. But apart from these very, literally a handful of situations that would otherwise result in a crime, so there is a reason why that's the case, I think the idea of the concept of hate speech just doesn't work. And it is very dangerous. Rip Yellowstone writes, I stumbled across your channel and I'm delighted that I did. I enjoyed your content. Thanks. Well, that's very nice to read. Glenn Bradley says, 1 minute, 5 seconds in, I do not yet know where you're going with this, but I am already encouraged given that you have recognized aspects which most people who discuss this do not. And I think he's talking about the fact that I was trying to, because whenever we ask this question, is it left-wing, is it right-wing, we really have to place it spatially and temporally. And then again, when we talk about fascism and Nazism, we're talking about specifically European political regimes of the 20th century. So if you ask this question from an American perspective, there is a temporal space, 20th century versus 21st century politics, and there is a spatial disconnection, European politics versus American politics. Well, this is, cool guy, fun guy 2307, me. Is Nazism right-wing or left-wing? Metatron, no. Well, I didn't really give a direct response because I want people, as I was saying, to use their own critical thinking based on where you come from. With that being said, I did say that I think when it comes to totalitarian regimes, specifically of the 20th century, Nazism, fascism, communism, under Stalin, it is objectively better to qualify them and classify them as totalitarian regimes. They are their own things. JBlau01, this was very informative, thank you. I felt I knew quite a bunch before viewing, and honestly this challenged some of my own perspectives on what I thought I knew. Great video, Meta. You're very welcome, and I'm glad that there are plenty of people who seems to be at least open-minded enough to not let their emotions get the better of them, as some people did in the comments, and are ready to at least try to challenge their own preconceptions, which we all have, of course, me included. Ooh, it was clearly Reich-wing. That's a sly play on words. Jade Phoenix says, as a conservative Republican, there is nothing of Hitler's policies that I would agree with, except on the nationalist versus globalist question. I would be a nationalist by default. All of his policies would be to the left of mine. And I think when it comes to this section, it makes sense. Of course, the nationalistic component in right-wing politics, whether it be in Italy, whether it be in France, or whether it be in America. And of course, in America, we also have the Christian nationalists, which, I don't remember seeing those back in Italy, but then again, it's not like I'm that involved in modern politics anyways. So once again, take everything I say with a grain of salt, and if you do see that I say something incorrectly, please correct me. Although, once again, to show how this sometimes can be really confusing is that, should we not ask ourselves then, were the Soviets under Stalin nationalist? Let me know what you think in the comments below. However, what he probably perceives as left of him are clearly the big government part, the economic positions, or at least some of the economic positions that Hitler had. And we also have to remember that even in the religious side of things, even though Hitler initially considered himself to be a member of the so-called positive Christianity, which was a type of Christianity that I don't even know if we could qualify as Christianity, but that again, he did say in his own writings, if you read his letters to the SS, for instance, he did write that Christianity was ripe for destruction and that it was an ideology that he hated because it was fit for slaves. So that doesn't sound like a Christian to me. And clearly, if this person, not all conservatives are Christians, of course, but if this person is also a Christian conservative, then clearly these positions held by Hitler would not resonate with you. Case-by-case situation, and we would have to look at each and every single policy. Sank says, this is the first video I've ever seen from you guys. It was good. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Very much appreciated. 82 Dorin says, property rights in National Socialism were contingent on the use of that property. If a factory owner produced what the state wanted, they could stay in control. If they refused, the state would take over. Effectively, the individual had no actual property rights. Now, this is a very good point, but we do have to underline one thing that I did forget to present on the actual video. So, this is correct. While Hitler was in power, there was no private property in the capitalistic American sense because the government told you what to make, and if you didn't, they will take control. With that being said, what I did not say, which must be said to have a complete picture, is that this is also something that does tend to happen during times of war. And of course, a lot of what we see in the practical applications of Hitler's economic policies in regards to private property did occur during war. Now, the real question would be, would Hitler have maintained that level of state control over the production industry even after the war had he won? And really the answer to that question can only be speculative. In my opinion, yes, he would have. That's what I think, because he was a control maniac and a control freak. But I can't prove it. Even though I have studied this, I cannot prove it. So if it were the case that Hitler only did that, the control of private property and the means of production through state intervention, if he only did that during war, but then if he had won, everything would have gone back to a situation that would have pushed for a capitalist approach to the means of production, then can you even call it socialism if it's fundamentally capitalist? It's difficult to answer though, because we don't know. He lost. Thank God. Hey noble ones, I noticed that quite a few of you watching my videos are not actually subscribed, so it would be so good and I would really appreciate it if you could click the subscribe button right now, as it really helps the channel and the production. Thank you so much. Rust and Curry says, dude, thank you, brilliant spot on analysis. Has anyone ever told you you remind them of Nandor the Relentless? Well, thank you. Who is Nandor the Relentless? Nandor the Relentless, look at this. Is he a vampire? Pretty cool, but his hair is a little short, my friend. Where am I now these days? Let me check. Yeah. Yeah. Little, I don't know. Don't know what to tell you. Not there. Not yet. I went from Italian Jesus to metalhead, now I'm becoming Rapunzel. Metal Rapunzel. Raymond, excellent video. I've been arguing these very points for decades. Thank you for posting. You're very welcome. Chaela, this definitely won't be a controversial subject. Keep it up with the great history content. Metatron, one of the best channels on YouTube. Thank you so much. I very much appreciate that. C. Molodite says, the American left-right dichotomy is actually a liberal-conservative dichotomy. The concept of a far-left political spectrum is French and is mostly used in Europe. I'm not sure about this definition, because then again, liberal is clearly, in America, one of the elements of the left. Another one being, for example, progressives, socialism being in there, of course, when it comes to the economic ideas. And once again, in America, it is opposed to conservatism. However, I would like to underline that from a European perspective, the word liberal does mean classical liberalism, which is instead usually a populist center-right position. So do keep in mind the terminology does not always overlap. And then if we add to this almost a century of distance, situation will become a little murky, if you will. And the only reason why I'm saying this is because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about 20th century totalitarian regimes. KBV, you're a genius. I appreciate that. I'm just a guy with a camera. I've thought these ideas for many years, but been able to put it together like you have. Hats off, brother. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Awesome beard if that's you. John K. Red is a left-wing color and blue is a right-wing color. In Europe, yes, I would agree. The US colors are the opposite these days. Yes, they swapped them. Now, I think, because here's the thing, from a European perspective, yes, the reds are the commies. That's usually how it is. And a lot of moderate right-wing parties all the way up to and far-right parties do use blue in Europe as an identificator. I've seen white used by centrist parties, which, by the way, do exist in Italy. And now, not as much, but I remember in the 90s, for instance, and in the 80s, center did get votes and did win in several occasions. Like, for instance, in the case of Democrazia Cristiana, Christian Democracy, although there were a lot of problems and scandal with that party. But just to say that in America, it's really a two-party system. Green is never going to win. Let's face it. And personally, I can't vote. But if I could vote, I wouldn't vote green because it would feel like a wasted vote. But that's just me. If you're an American citizen, vote as you prefer and vote as you feel. So if you want to vote green, be my guest. But in Europe, we have had several parties in power. I've seen this happen throughout the 90s, as I say, and now, I mean, I haven't been in Italy for a while, so it's not like I'm following that much. But yes, there is definitely more selection, and even though sometimes parties do ally together, it is a thing, and definitely red was used not only by Rifondazione Comunista, which was a party very active in the 90s on the far left of the spectrum, it means communist refounding, but also center-left parties. They all use red. The way people explain this to me, once again, double check my information, is that in America, things were swapped because the left did not want to use red as they did not want to be associated with communism. In fact, we could sufficiently say that even the Democratic Party in America, even though they are socialists, it's just not as left-wing as some of the parties do get in Europe, for instance. And apparently that stuck, and then the right wing strongly solidified with red as a color, which is of course the color of MAGA. We see the hats and all of that. But it is strange that they were swapped. To me, it's always a little strange to see. User, finding your channel was a blessing. I greatly appreciate your unbiased approach to everything and how well you articulate the information. Doing my best. Thank you so much for watching. Cornpop96, I've never understood why it matters, just so it can be blamed on the other side. Yes, absolutely. That is the way I think the majority of people who use this classification use it. Because I think, honestly speaking, we got to a point where I think most people will recognize that Nazism was bad. Unless you're a neo-Nazi, the majority of the population of planet Earth will tell you Nazi bad. And the same with fascism. People will tell you, yeah, fascism is bad. It was horrible. The stuff that Benito Mussolini did in Italy in the 40s is terrible. As an answer to this, I wanted to say that yes, people do use it because most of us recognize Nazism and fascism as bad, and therefore Nazi and fascist become slurs. And so you want to apply them to the opposite side. It's just what happens. Because this way, if you're a Nazi, you're bad. I mean, people used it against me. They called me a Nazi and a fascist. Me. Oh my gosh, anyways. Interestingly enough, I think we should be able to say that about communism with Stalin. For some reason, communism tends to get a pass, even though Stalin did cause millions of deaths. I mean, look at the Gulag. I understand that people can still support the economic positions of communism. I mean, you can choose whatever type of economy you think would work best. And I can also understand the idea of a class struggle. But Stalin cannot get a pass for what he has done, just like Hitler doesn't get a pass or Mussolini doesn't get a pass. But I digress. The cosplayer, we can always count on you for a thorough examination of political issues. Keep up the good work, Metatron. Thank you so much. I'm trying to, keep it real. Keep it real. Anyways, I think I read enough comments for tonight. If you're interested, next time I could look for the worst ones, like the ones that are really offensive, because personally I don't care, whatever. It could be entertaining, so if you're interested in that, let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. See you tomorrow. Don't be a muppet.